Part 6, The Wolf Woman Ari. The forest stretched endlessly, its dense canopy casting a silver hue as the moon filtered through the shifting branches. Kage walked quietly, each step absorbed by the moss-laden earth. After crossing the Lake of Spirits, the storm had changed something within him. He felt more attuned to the world, not just its pain, but its hidden whispers. Ahead, the wind shifted. A sudden rustle. He paused, hand resting on the hilt of his soul-bound sword. Not out of fear, but instinct. A low growl followed, more guttural than any wolf he had known. "You're being hunted," came a voice, feminine but sharp like flint. Kage turned slowly. Out of the shadows stepped a figure cloaked in pelts and leather, her eyes glowing with an amber light that reflected animal instincts. Her hair was long, tangled, dark as midnight, and wolf ears protruded from beneath her hood. A long, jagged scar traced the left side of her jaw. "I saw you cross the lake. No one crosses that place and comes out clean." Kage narrowed his gaze. "And who are you to watch the lake?" She stepped closer, her posture loose yet predatory. "Ari. Guardian of these woods. I protect what remains." He remained still. "I'm not your enemy. Everyone is, until proven otherwise." They sat by a small fire not long after, sharing the silence. Ari moved with calculated precision, skinning a rabbit and roasting it while her nose twitched every few seconds, alert to the forest. "You carry war in your scent," she said. Kage said nothing. "Yet, you also carry something. Older. Something that speaks to the bones of this land." He studied her as the fire danced between them. "The god sent me. Or so I was told." She barked a laugh. "The gods. Those old bastards still whispering to men." "They gave me this blade," Kage said, unsheathing it just enough to reveal the pulsing light along the spine of the sword. Ari leaned forward, her expression now deadly serious. "That sword is cursed. Or blessed. Hard to say. Either way, you should know, things like that call attention. Even the dead might come crawling for it." "Let them," Kage replied calmly. They traveled together for 3 days. The forest was alive with things neither dared name. Whispers echoed in the dark. Trees bled sap that shimmered blue. At one point, they passed an ancient shrine carved into stone, overgrown with vines. "The old tongue," Ari whispered, running her fingers across the runes. "Can you read it?" Kage asked. She nodded. "It says, 'Beware the hunger that walks upright.'" She looked up at him. "Ever heard of the Hollowed Ones?" Kage shook his head. "Not dead. Not alive. Victims of the war, fed on by the curse of sorrow. Their hearts beat, but only to consume joy. That night, they found one. Or rather, it found them. It appeared as a child first, sobbing and calling for its mother." Ari stiffened, claws extending from her fingers. "That's not a child." Kage drew his sword. The thing twisted. Skin peeled back, revealing a mouth where no mouth should be, and its eyes became black voids. It shrieked, sending a shockwave through the trees. Ari leapt, feral and fast, tackling the creature. Kage moved in unison, blade flashing. It took all their strength to sever the Hollowed One's head. When it fell, the air grew calm. But Ari looked shaken. "They've never come this far east before. Something is drawing them. Something big." On the 4th night, as they sat beside a cliff edge overlooking a sea of mist, Ari finally spoke of her past. "I was once human. Mostly. My father was a warrior from the Federation. My mother. Something else. When the war burned through our village, I was the only one left. The forest took me in. Changed me. I hated it at first. She looked at him, a strange softness in her eyes. But now, I see clearer in the dark than I ever did in the light. Kage nodded. You fight like someone who lost everything. She chuckled. You too. A moment passed. What do you plan to do? She asked. He looked to the stars. Bring balance. Not just peace, but something deeper. A world where no child is born just to die in another man's war. Ari exhaled, her breath misting in the cold air. Then I'll go with you. For now. At dawn, they stood before a forked path, one leading deeper into the ruins of the old empire, another toward the jagged cliffs of the Mist Ranges. Kage turned to Ari. You choose. She smirked. Cliffs it is. The dead don't like heights. As they stepped into the mists, a new chapter began. The blade pulsed once more, stronger now. But far away, beyond the range, something old stirred. Something watching. From the mists behind them, faint footsteps echoed. Ari paused, glancing over her shoulder. We're being followed, she whispered. Kage's grip tightened. But the steps vanished as quickly as they came. Only the wind remained. And yet, something unseen had crossed into their world. Part 7, Mistwalkers. The mists clung to their boots like breath from the dead. Each step into the Mist Ranges felt like passing through a veil that separated the living world from something older, half-remembered. Sound moved strangely here, echoes bouncing back twisted and faint, like ghosts repeating their last words. Kage and Ari walked in silence, eyes sharp, blades ready. The cliffs dropped into oblivion on their right, while on the left the slopes climbed into a forest of pale trees, trees with no leaves, their trunks bleached like bone. These lands belong to the Sky Monks, Ari said quietly. Long ago, they believed the higher one climbed, the closer they came to truth. Kage glanced up. What happened to them? They found it, she said. And it drove them mad. The fog thickened. Shadows flickered within it, some took the shape of men, others, less human. Once, Kage thought he saw a temple tower looming far ahead, only to blink and see it gone. Don't trust your eyes here, Ari warned. The mists lie. A howl rang out, not wolf, but something more fragmented, as though sung by a broken throat. Ari froze. Mistwalkers, she said. They guard the old monastery. And they don't like intruders. By dusk, they reached a broken bridge spanning a chasm filled with swirling fog. A single rope remained, swaying gently in the wind. Beyond it, crumbling stone stairs carved into the mountain, leading upward into shadow. We cross, Kage said. Ari raised a brow. You trust your balance that much? No. I trust the blade. He wrapped the rope around his arm and stepped onto the remnants of the bridge. The wind screamed beneath him. Halfway across, a shriek rose from the chasm. Fingers, elongated and pale, reached up, clawing at the air. Ari leapt behind him, unsheathing twin daggers. They're coming. The Mistwalkers rose like spirits from the abyss. Skin translucent, mouth sewn shut with silver thread, and eyes glowing dimly with sorrow. Kage swung down with his sword, the light of it scattering the fog like fire to paper. One creature hissed and recoiled, falling back. Ari twisted in midair, blade spinning, severing limbs that vanished into mist before they hit the stones. They made it across, barely. The Mistwalkers retreated into the chasm, but their whispers lingered like frost. Inside the monastery ruins, silence reigned. Statues of serene monks stood cracked and covered in ivy. A vast mural across the far wall depicted the fall of the heavens, gods pierced by arrows, stars bleeding into the sea. What is this place really? Kage asked. Ari ran her hand over the wall. A prophecy. One that says the balance of the world will shatter when the last of the Skyborn bleeds. He frowned. Skyborn? Not gods. Not humans. Something between. They vanished before the war. Or so we thought. A cold wind slithered through the stones. Kage turned, suddenly alert. From the far corridor, a figure approached. It wore old monk robes, torn and rotting. But its face was hidden beneath a mask carved from obsidian. Symbols glowed faintly along its arms, sigils of binding, of memory, of forgotten power. Ari stepped forward, tense. That's no monk. The figure spoke, not in words, but into their minds. You carry the blade that broke the storm. Kage tightened his grip. Who are you? I am the echo of silence. The guardian of the veiled path. The masked figure raised a hand. The wall behind it shimmered, revealing a hidden door, outlined by runes that pulsed like veins. Beyond this path lies the truth you seek. But it will cost you memories. Ari hissed. Magic that feeds on memory. Dangerous. Kage took a breath. Then take what you must, he said. And stepped through. Darkness. Then, light. He stood in a field of red flowers. The sky above shimmered, not with stars, but with eyes. From the mist, a woman emerged, her face familiar. His mother. No. Not quite. A memory half-formed. She reached out. Kage. He stepped back, pain flashing across his face. The blade at his side trembled. Then it spoke, in a voice he'd never heard before. Do not forget who you are. He opened his eyes, falling forward onto the stone floor of the monastery. Ari knelt beside him. You're bleeding from your ears, she said. He sat up slowly. Something inside had shifted. A memory was gone, he didn't know which. But the sword felt lighter now. More alive. The echo of silence was gone. Only the open door remained. And the path ahead. They left the monastery by dawn, the sun breaking through the mist at last. Kage looked over the edge of the cliff one last time. The mistwalkers no longer followed. But far below, something stirred in the fog. Watching. Waiting. Part 8, Mistwalkers. The mist ranges stretched before them like an ocean of white silk, draped across jagged cliffs and hidden ravines. Each step was a gamble, stone, void, or worse. Kage and Ari moved in silence, the only sounds being the whisper of wind and the crunch of their cautious footsteps. The mist was alive here, curling in tendrils around limbs, whispering memories that didn't belong to them. Stay close, Ari murmured, her breath forming pale clouds in the chill air. Her wolf instincts bristled. Kage's hand hovered near his blade. I feel them too. And then, like a sudden shift in a dream, figures. Pale silhouettes moved in the fog, tall and thin, robes trailing behind them like liquid shadow. Mistwalkers. Don't look into their faces, Ari warned. Too late. One turned toward Kage. Its face was featureless but for a single eye, wide and filled with swirling galaxies. A flood of emotion struck him, grief, longing, unbearable nostalgia. He staggered back, clutching his chest. Ari growled, leaping between them. Fight the feeling. It's not yours. That's how they feed. Kage shut his eyes, steadied his breath, and drew his blade. The moment he did, the mistwalkers hissed, recoiling from the blade's glow. But they didn't attack. They waited. They're guardians, Ari whispered. They won't strike unless provoked. But they want something. Kage opened his eyes slowly. Then we give them nothing. They moved forward, step by deliberate step, until the figures faded into the fog once more. Later, they found a path carved into the mountain, ancient and broken, etched with strange symbols. Ari traced them with reverence. This is old magic, forgotten by the Empire. This path leads to the Temple of Echoes. And what's there? Kage asked. A shard of the world mirror. It sees what was and what may come. If we're lucky, it'll give us a glimpse of what stirs in the west. They camped in a hollow beneath a stone overhang, firelight flickering against the cold stone. You saw something back there, Ari said. Kage hesitated. A memory that wasn't mine. A child holding a broken flute. A mother. Humming. The sky bleeding fire. Ari looked into the flames. The Mistwalkers consume memory. But they also carry it. You saw someone's last thought. Maybe even your own future. Kage stared into the mist beyond the fire. Or both. At dawn, they ascended higher. The air thinned. Snow mixed with mist. The temple loomed ahead, massive, circular, open to the sky. In the center stood a tall obsidian pillar, and embedded in it, a shard of crystal that shimmered like moonlight. Kage approached. The shard pulsed. Suddenly, he was elsewhere. Fire. Screams. A battlefield. Not in the past, not in the future, but a fracture of possibility. A king falling. Children turned to ash. A dark blade raised high, his blade. No. He staggered back. Ari caught him. It showed you. Too much. I saw what happens if I fail. Or worse, if I become what I fight. She steadied him. Then don't fail. Behind them, the mists began to move again. The Mistwalkers bowed their heads. And vanished. As they left the temple, the shard faded behind them. But the image burned in Kage's mind. The dark blade. His hand. The throne of bones. He knew now, it wasn't enough to fight the old powers. He had to fight what he might become. And the West was waiting. With eyes open. And teeth bared. Part 9, The Western Wound. The world west of the Mist Ranges was a land untouched by time, but not by violence. Once, it had been lush with forests and rivers that hummed with song. Now, it lay scarred. The trees were silent, branches blackened as if burned from within. Villages had been emptied, their homes hollow shells picked apart by crows. And beyond them, the sky. It wasn't gray or blue. It was bruised, like the skin around an old wound. Kage and Ari entered this land with slow steps. Every breath tasted of ash. The air's wrong, Ari said, sniffing. Kage nodded. It smells like endings. Far in the distance, a tower rose above the land like a crooked fong. Smoke coiled around its spire, and even from afar, it pulsed. Not light. Not magic. Something older. Hungrier. That's where it started, Ari muttered. The Blight. They walked through the ruins of a town named Hollowreach. Signs of life, dolls left in the dirt, dried ink on messages never sent, clung to the remnants like ghosts. On a wall, someone had scrawled in blood-red paint. The king is a lie. The West remembers. Kage stared. What does it mean? Ari shook her head. Propaganda. A warning. Or madness. They blend out here. Suddenly, a faint cry echoed from a collapsed inn. Not a beast, but a child. They rushed in. Beneath broken beams, a boy no older than 10 lay half-covered in soot. Alive. Pale. Eyes wide with fear. Please, he whispered. Don't let them find me. Ari knelt. Who? The boy didn't answer. He only looked to the shadows. Kage turned. And saw them. Eyes. Dozens. Reflecting the dim light. Creatures that had once been men, but now twisted. Limbs too long. Mouths too wide. Skin peeled back like bark from a dead tree. Blightborn, Ari hissed. They came crawling, climbing, skittering. Kage stood before them, sword drawn. Get him out. Now. The fight was fast. Brutal. Every strike of Kage's blade burned the creatures with silver flame. They screamed, not from pain, but as if remembering. Each one he felled turned to smoke. Behind him, Ari dragged the boy to safety. At last, silence. But Kage was panting. Not from exhaustion, but from something that clawed at his spirit. He sheathed his blade slowly. They weren't attacking. Not like beasts. It was like. They knew me. Eris' gaze darkened. Or something inside you. They camped that night in an old bell tower. The boy slept beside Ari. Kage sat alone, watching the horizon. This land was poisoned, he whispered to the wind. Not by nature. But by choices. By hunger. He touched the hilt of his blade. It pulsed. For a moment, his reflection in the blade shimmered, golden eyes, cracked skin, and a crown of thorns. He shut his eyes. The path west was not just a journey. It was a test. And he was already changing. At dawn, the boy spoke. My name is Lin. My village made a pact. With the voice below. They said it would protect us. But it fed instead. Kage crouched beside him. What is the voice? The boy's eyes grew distant. A whisper in dreams. A promise in the dark. It wore my father's face. But it wasn't him. Ari exhaled sharply. It's waking. Kage looked westward. Then we go. To the tower. To the wound. We end this. The wind picked up. And from the west, a whisper. Calling his name. As they broke camp, Kage placed a hand on Lin's shoulder. You're not alone anymore. The boy looked up at him, blinking back tears. You fight the dark. But it follows you. Kage didn't deny it. He merely nodded. They walked onward, the tower drawing closer, each step heavier than the last. The blight pulsed in the soil now, in the wind, in the shadows of the clouds. And within Kage, the golden shimmer was returning, flickering just behind his eyes. He spoke without looking back. When we reach the tower, we don't look down. Not at the truth. Not at what we were. Only at what we must become. No one answered. But the land listened. And it remembered his name. Part 10, The Tower of Thorns. The wind howled over the ashen plains as Kage, Ari, and the boy Lin trudged forward. The blackened earth crackled beneath their boots, and every breath was a struggle against the fetid air, thick with decay and whispers. The Tower of Thorns loomed now, titanic, ancient, wrong. Its spiraling spire was wrapped in brambles the size of trees, each one pulsing faintly like veins beneath skin. Around its base, the land was broken, cracked like glass around an impact. The heart of the blight. They reached a ridge overlooking the tower. This is it, Ari said, voice hoarse. Where it all broke. Kage's gaze was fixed on the crown of the tower. Something writhed there, tendrils of shadow, coiling like smoke. It was not just magic. It was will. Intent. The voice is waiting, Lin whispered. It knows we're here. They descended toward the ruins that encircled the tower's base. These had once been fortresses, 5 great bastions meant to protect the realm's edge. Now, they were consumed. Their stones were melted together by dark heat, their banners rotted to silence. Inside the first ruin, they found bones. Not old. Not yet dry. And carved into the wall in spiraling script. The crown shall return by blood and by blade. Kage's hand gripped the hilt of his sword. What crown? Ari asked. Lin's voice trembled. The false king. The one who sleeps in the wound. Ari turned sharply. The emperor's brother. The one who vanished during the war. Kage said nothing. But his eyes narrowed. He remembered that name, once whispered in the blood-soaked halls of his own nightmares, Shigyur. As they approached the tower's base, reality thinned. The walls breathed, the wind sang. The sky split in veins of black light. And at the gate, a guardian. Once a man. Now something else. Towering, robed in tattered crimson, crowned in thorns that grew into its skull. Its eyes burned with the blight. But it knelt when it saw Kage. You have returned, it rasped. Master. Kage stopped. What? Ari drew her blade. Step back, now. The guardian rose. The wound remembers your blood. Your birthright. The throne was broken, but you were never lost. You mistake me, Kage said, stepping forward. I am no king. The guardian tilted its head. Then why does the tower call only to you? It attacked. The duel was a blur, silver against shadow, fire against decay. Ari guarded Lin, who wept with eyes shut, while Kage danced with death. The guardian's blade sang with rot, but Kage's sword, now glowing white-hot, burned every strike away. He moved like he had always known this enemy. And when he struck the final blow, the guardian fell and smiled. The crown wakes. It was always you. They entered the tower. Inside, madness. The walls spiraled endlessly. Doors led to skies. Mirrors held memories not their own. Voices whispered every sin Kage had ever committed. Ari nearly collapsed. It's pulling at my mind. Kage, this place is a prison. No, he said. A throne. At the tower's heart, they found it. A vast chamber of thorns and fire. And upon a dais of black stone, seated on a skeletal throne, a man. Pale, eyes of gold. And a face that mirrored Kage's own. Shigyur. Brother, the figure said. At last. The confrontation was not one of blades, but of truths. Shigyur spoke of the pact, how he had offered his body to the voice below in exchange for a power that would never fade. How he had carved the blight into the world to create a kingdom that obeyed. Kage listened. Then spoke. You broke the world. For fear. I reforged it. For order. You killed for power. You kill for peace. We are the same. Kage unsheathed his sword. It blazed white. No. We are what we choose. And I choose to end this. The battle shattered the chamber. Thorns writhed. Fire screamed. The voice below screamed through Shigyur's mouth. Kage. Return to me. But Kage stood firm. With one final strike, he severed the crown from Shigyur's brow. The chamber exploded in light. When it cleared, the tower was crumbling. Ari dragged Lin toward the exit. Kage stood, bleeding. Shaking, but victorious. He did not wear a crown, but the blight was gone. The wound was closing. As the tower fell behind them, the land exhaled. And Kage, once a ghost of war, now walked as the first of a new dawn. Far to the east, the mist parted. Birds returned to the sky. Rivers ran clean. And a single blossom bloomed at the foot of the fallen tower. Hope.